Yes, people, my name is Yamin Choudury and I'm the artistic director of the Hackney Empire. This conversation is brought to you by Hackney Empire and the Hackney Empire Creative Futures program. Hackney Empire Creative Futures works with over 4,000 young people who are using drama, dance, music, film, design and everything in between to explore our potential. And today I am joined by two very, very good friends, two people I actually look up to and admire very, very much, Stevenson and Jammz. Guys, how are you today?
Bit of a mad question, isn't it?
I expected to have an answer.
Honest question. I'm cool. I don't know what day it is. I just about know what time it is. I'm in my own little world. But yeah, I'm good, man. I'm all right. I'm not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Debs, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like every day has so many different dimensions to it, doesn't it? Like, right in this very moment, I feel quite exhausted. I think that's a perpetual thing. Like, I definitely have much less mental bandwidth than I would usually have. But yeah, like overall, I feel like I'm in quite a good place at the moment. Yeah, I feel like I've got a good routine. I've just started to think about creative projects again in a way that doesn't feel like pain. So yeah, I'm in a cool place.
I don't feel like that at all right now. Actually, I feel like I'm hitting a bit of a bottom for me. So, and I've spoken about these in previous, in conversation with, it's definitely in waves and in cycles. And in fact, I've spoken about this with both of you. For me, it's definitely in waves. And the last couple of days have felt more difficult. And I'll be honest, it's a lot because of this. Like, I see you guys, I feel happy seeing your faces. I haven't seen you two in too long anyway. And then there's that kind of digital barrier that, because I'm spending so much time on my laptop and computer, I'm struggling with right now.
100.
So I'm looking forward to a weekend just to like shut down and switch off. But this is a bit of a rough patch for me, and I know I'll get through it. But how are you guys coping with those rough patches? Is it still in waves for you guys as well? Or have you do you think you've come out the other end and you're kind of on a more positive trajectory?
Definitely waves, man. Like, since this whole thing's begun, it's weird. Like, there's the initial like period of lockdown. It's like, all right, cool. Like, I need to prepare whatever I need to prepare to kind of live like this for a bit. Then I went through about 2 weeks of, I want to create, but I can't create because I just don't have the capacity for it. And then being frustrated at not being able to create. Then now I've got a million ideas, and then it goes back to, I've got a block again for a couple of weeks. So I'm just trying to like alternate the things that I do in terms of like, you know, I might want to write one day, I might want to edit a video another day. So I'm just trying to like find one of the many things that I'm good at. They might be able to keep me occupied on different days, but some days I don't want to do nothing. I'm not even gonna lie. Some days I don't even want to chat to anyone because it's like you were saying, the digital barrier. Like, I've been to a couple like Zoom parties online and they're good, but then after I come off the camera, there's this realization, it's like, I just had a party online, like this is dead. I should be with people in real life. Like, I haven't been able to go and see my family for like 4 weeks now, who I usually see all the time. So it's just like, it does mess with you. But then, yeah, man, like, I don't know, you kind of just find a way to cope. Like, I've definitely enjoyed having the time to just being able to hear myself think again. And kind of really think about how it is I want to move forward. And like, that's the blessing in it for me, just having the time to like reassess. Because even with the whole Port of Poet, I feel like for the past 4 or 5 months, it's just been literally like go. And then Poet ended, and I think it was so sudden that I didn't realize my brain was still going at 100 miles an hour, but the world had kind of stopped. So it's kind of like recalibrating to kind of like bring yourself to where everybody else is. So there was that kind of process as well. But yeah, man, it's ups and downs, isn't it?
And so, Jammz, when you're talking about Poet, for those that don't know, Jammz is referring to Poet in the Corner, which is Debris's kind of baby, your creative baby. And Debs, I want you to tell us all about that, but I just want you to answer the same question as well, because I know that you and I have had a bit of back and forth in terms of kind of emotional cycles and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I've definitely been through waves. I think I went through a period of just feeling like, okay, I'm insanely lucky. I should just be appreciative of the fact that, you know, the Royal Court still paid us for the rest of the run. I had to very quickly move to my parents' house, but I had a place to live. I'm well, and I wasn't sort of not at risk or whatever. So there was a long time where I was just trying to be like, Deborah, you can't complain, like you're alive kind of thing. And then I think there was definitely a point where I realized, okay, well, you had to cancel the biggest creative project of your life.
Yeah.
Then my granddad passed away. I had my 30th birthday in quarantine. And it just felt like, okay, well, quite a few quite massive things in the scale of your life have happened. And I also had a breakup earlier in the year that I hadn't processed. I had to very quickly move house during this. So it just felt like, actually, Deborah, can you just listen? So definitely had the day before my birthday, I remember I just cried for maybe 4 hours. I was like, you just need to just let it out. And I was writing loads and just give yourself permission to acknowledge how huge this is. And then I read an article about denial and about being like, if you're not brought to a halt by this, then you are in denial, because the world is changing forever.
Yeah.
The end. Do you know what I mean? What that means, we don't know. And that's huge. And I think there was a lot of pressure. I got a commission really early on to write about the situation from High Tide, which was great. But that really paralyzed me. I submitted that, I think, 4 weeks after the deadline, because I was just like, how do you write about this? I just need to be here. I need to be present. I need to process what's going on. So, and then I started the Write Nows every day. So for the past 30 days, I've been running these 30-minute writing workouts. And that just really made me write about it like I was 15, I guess. Just made me stop thinking about it as a job or as my job as a poet to say something profound or hopeful, and instead just experience what was going on and use writing how primitively I use writing, which is to understand everything. And that was really a turning point, I guess, for me.
And I think that's really interesting that you said that, because that's almost like a danger of even stuff like this, what we're doing right now, is trying to be overly inspirational, trying to be overly profound and almost funnel your art in a certain direction. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm never at my most creative when I've got the end product in sight, just organically working my way to where something goes. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think for me, there was an initial, I need to have my art reflecting this, but then I came to a point, it was like, yo, art right now needs to be a drug for me. I just need to have art just to feel normal, just to feel good. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like naturally that's where the best art comes from. I don't feel like a big duty to kind of say anything in terms of having a commentary on what's going on. I think there was a kind of a pressure that I put on myself before, but now it's just I don't, like Deborah just said, I don't always have to have anything to say about this. Sometimes you just need to experience it and let the art that you're creating not be a direct response to it, but just be influenced by it and don't think about, where it's going to go kind of thing.
Yeah. So in the sense of creating art, Poet in the Corner, before we even get to where and I feel like a part of your journey on that in some small way, but where we were at less than a month ago, before we even get that, Dee, tell us about Poet in the Corner, break it down for us, tell us where it came from, tell us, for those that were hoping to see it at Hackney Empire and haven't had a chance yet, tell us, just break it down for us.
Yeah, so Poet in the Corner is a coming of age story, been dubbed a grime musical, that tells, my story really of finding my voice, and how grime enabled me to go from a place where I felt, I guess, homeless in many respects, in terms of not feeling accepted in my sexuality, not feeling like, in terms of my learning difficulties, I was able to navigate school, feeling bullied, feeling isolated, and then really grime becoming a home for me, specifically Dizzy Rascal's album really giving me all the tools I needed to know who I was and to articulate who I was, and ultimately, build a very successful career. So the show tracks that journey, but also, talks quite savagely, I'd say, about the responsibilities I have and the complexities of what that means in modern day society.
And poet is how you two met. Am I right in saying that, or did you guys know each other before that? No, I'm wrong. Correct.
We've known each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Me and Jammz, yeah. We met, our first paid commission was with Louis Vuitton via Charlie Dark.
That's nice. That's nice.
So yeah, we met through that. We were both in this crazy, I actually have the book in my house.
Yeah, I've got the book as well.
It's in like a special box, this very expensive book by Louis Vuitton. I'm in it, Jammz is in it, Inua Ellams is in it, Kate Tempest is in it, like lots of really massive.
What was it?
Kayo's in it as well, isn't he?
Kayo's in it, Kayo Chingonyi, yeah.
Yeah.
It's called, is it Paradise by Midnight?
Paradise by Night.
Paradise by Night.
It was commissioned by Louis Vuitton, and Chris O'Feely made artwork.
Tate Britain, yeah. And it was, Chris O'Feely did illustrations for all of our pictures.
So were you guys in your modelling bag, or was this kind of writing, or were you like posing? What was it? Just give me a quick brief. I'm trying to picture it.
The brief was to write a poem based on the theme of Paradise by Night. So obviously Charlie Dark obviously got a group of us together, and it was just Chris O'Feely's work was just a response to each of our pieces of writing, and then that was all brought together by Louis Vuitton. And what was the name of the publishing house that?
Was it Booth Clibben?
Booth Clibben, yes, the only Booth Clibben.
Arts publisher that published it for us, yeah. And it was all the books were hand printed. Took like 3 days, I think, for each page to dry. They're like really massive books. I'd get it out now, but I literally have to wear like special gloves to handle it because of how much it's worth. Wow. Probably the most expensive item of anything in my house right now. Yeah. Please don't rob me. We have insurance.
So you in that project, and then did you carry on working together, or just socially being together over the 10 years, or was it that this is the kind of thing I want to work together on, or how did that work, that journey?
I feel like we oscillated around each other a bit at the time because we're not in entirely dissimilar circles, really. But then I was at uni in Nottingham. What's weird is that I was at uni in Nottingham and you were in uni in Leicester, and we didn't really know that.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't know that at all at the time.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know that. And actually, you know what? I would have been in Loughborough in your final year because I went straight on to do a master's at Loughborough.
Which is down the road from Leicester, but ironically, in the last year, I didn't go in much at all. I was actually spending more time back in London in the last year than I was, because I started working at Apple in Stratford in the last year, so I was spending more time here than I was at uni because I had like one lecture a week by that point. So we didn't really see each other for a bit, and then it was actually Charlie. I was working on Poet for 5 years. Royal Court got involved in like the last 2 years of that process. So Charlie Dark was helping me develop it, and he was like, you have to work with Jammz. And so then I was like, okay, cool. So I hit Jammz up and we had a conversation about it at St Pancras Station, I remember. Oh yes, I remember.
And then Jammz was coming up for the Kano tour anyway to Nottingham, and we wrote the first draft of a song which was Stop That. And then, I wrote loads of other songs with other MCs and other producers. We performed that at Dirty Verse, the first version of the show that existed at the Roundhouse.
Wow.
I then did a whole development of like grime poetics with Apples and Snakes. C. Kane was involved in that. Eclipse was involved in that. Kayo, Bridget Minamore, lots of really cool people. So we did that. We did some performances around that. And yeah, it was like a really long journey, really, because then I was at the Royal Court for a bit. My previous director wanted it to be a one-woman show, so that sort of veered it in another direction. I then kind of realised that direction wasn't right. We went with Ola, and when Ola came on board, for me, part of that agreement was that Jammz would do it. And then it took some coercion, I think largely from Vicky Featherstone, to get him to do it. And me promising he didn't have to dance.
Okay, yeah. So, so from my point of view, I saw Poet at the press night in its first life in 2018. And you and I had met actually at Hackney Empire a couple of months beforehand, doing a panel discussion. And I remember you telling me about this show, and I signed up then, and I wasn't even invited to press night, but I managed to get a ticket anyway and snuck in.
You bought a ticket to press night, really?
I didn't buy it, but I wasn't invited. So
Okay.
it was all, I don't know who got me.
Bubbled yourself in.
But yeah, I snuck in somehow. Anyway, I'd only been in post as AD for 2 weeks, I remember.
Oh, wow.
And I saw the show, and I went, yeah, I really want this to be at Empire for a variety of reasons. And I think based on what you guys just said, it felt very true. It felt very honest as a piece. And it felt as if it was evaluating itself as it proceeded. And particularly at the end, without giving the story away, but at the end, in a part that you're pivotal in, Jammz, it feels like there's this wonderful kind of self-referential, crystallizing moment that just felt really honest and authentic, and I knew that I just had to get it at Hackney Empire. So it's been, and I remember saying it to you both when it was rehearsing for what was going to be this incarnation. It was quite a special moment for me to see you guys in Empire and see that come into life, because I've never been an AD before, and I was 2 weeks in the job, and it just felt really bizarre trying to rope, Vicky Featherstone and Lucy into a corner and convince them to bring the show on press night to my venue.
Yeah.
But it was really, really special. What has that process of performance been like for you both, in terms of this first incarnation and now taking it on a kind of UK regional tour? What was that journey like for you in terms of the rehearsal process and re-refining it, etc.? Jammz, since it took you needing to be coerced in it and kind of your theatrical debut, let's start with you. What was that like for you?
It was, you know what, like in the beginning, I was definitely not as loose as I was, like open to the process as I was now, but I feel like I'm always up for giving things a try, even if initially, like, I don't know if it's going to work or not. And I think the first time it was a bit more of a hurdle for me, because I was going from performing as a musician on stage to then acting. And I was like, how do I do this? Because memorizing a lyric for me is completely different to memorizing a conversation and having to memorize cues and stuff. But then I soon kind of came to realize that it's actually just an extension of what I do. Especially like even in the play, like Deborah talks about Grime being like WWE, where you get all these big characters, and that comparison between that and radio, and being a character on the radio where nobody can see you, so you have to be an even bigger character. And it's just like finding out how to do what I already do from another angle. But then I think the thing which I wasn't really expecting was, or which I didn't really quite understand, was there's a difference between acting for TV and acting for theatre. And I've never acted on TV before, but the thing about acting for theatre is that you're always exploring your character every day. Like you're finding something new. And I feel like that was the part of the process which I probably struggled the most with. Like you might do 7 to 9 shows in a week, and every day you're finding something different to do, because otherwise you're just repeating the lines and it's becoming almost like robotic. So I feel like, especially when we came back for the second run, I feel like a lot of the rewrites that me and Deborah done with like Ola were really helpful for me in like learning about my character, and trying to like always explore different ways of maybe how my character would react, because I never like to give the same performance twice. Like it just feels, and that was a big challenge for me as well, because by the time we got to Birmingham, I was kind of struggling a bit, because I was thinking, like it's just feeling the same every day, even if I'm doing something small, like, and I'm really beginning to get worried that I'm just saying the lines on cue and I'm not actually acting, and I'm not actually invested in the story. So that was a big challenge for me personally. But then once you kind of, get over that, and then you understand that half of acting is also listening, it becomes easier, because then you're going off the vibes that everybody else on stage is giving to you as well. Like whether it's I'm having an interaction with Debris, Kira Bell, or Stacey, like every day something new happens. And that's why this play was kind of like special for me, because it's allowed me to explore like the character in a way that I've never explored like a character before. Do you know what I mean? And it's been helpful for me even in terms of my music, my writing, and then even in the sense when you think about like me meeting Viper for the first time, and then realizing that we all indirectly knew each other anyway. So I had a a whole nother dimension of, oh, like, okay, now I understand why he would have made this decision. Or so yeah, man, it was just the character development process was so much of an educational thing for me.
It's so interesting what you said about, you know, and it's the difference with live performance. There's no such thing as that final take. You know what I mean? It's not, okay, we got it.
Got it.
And it's fluid, changing and reevaluating. And even when you think that you've really nailed it, you know, even something that's born out of a mistake in another show makes you completely reevaluate what that's like. So D, for you, and you just said that it was a 5-year process. What's that like as an artist, pouring your heart and soul and everything, I can only imagine, into something like that, and then pressing that at Royal Court and getting those kinds of reviews and getting the kind of feedback and response that I know you got. What was that like for you as an artist?
You know, particularly the first time round, it was hard. Like, there was so much on me, you know, as the writer and the performer, and particularly the first time round, and I was very involved with fundraising for the show. I had my own producer. I was really on the show full time for the 18 months before that show went up. It was every single part of my life. And I remember afterwards having no work booked in for about 4 months, because I was like, I haven't been replying to my emails. You know, that was my life. And really, I had to just trust Ola. You know, we promised we wouldn't read reviews, and I didn't read reviews till like 2 months after the show went down. Wow. No. And, you know, I've always felt like I'm an acquired taste as an artist, and I've always been fine with that. Like, people can disagree with that if they want to. Some of my friends might, but I really feel like, you know, the art I like divides the crowd. And I really am a strong believer that if too many people like you, you're probably some level of mediocre in terms of like a global level. And I just feel like, you know what, like the people I love, like they split the crowd, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with being that person. And, you know, even, you know, Malcolm Gladwell says when he talks about research and stuff is there's no such thing as a perfect Pepsi or as a perfect ragu. They've learned through market research that people have different tastes. So you have to have the perfect sour ragu and the perfect sweet ragu and the perfect spicy ragu. Do you know what I mean? So I'm cool with that. So I was really prepared to not be misunderstood and for everyone to think I was crazy. Yeah. I was ready for the 2-star reviews to come in and whatever. I didn't care. And I think I said backstage, Jammz isn't backstage with us, so I may not have said it to him, but I remember saying it first time around with Cassie and Kirabo, I said, I never did this. I never did this for the reviews. I didn't do it for awards. I did it for young people like us that never saw themselves on stage. Yeah. That's who this is for. Yeah. And we've done that. I did that before I stepped on that stage. So, and Ola knew that, and Ola got that. And I remember being on stage, just like, do what Ola told you to do. Like, that's the only thing that's in my head. Like, you have to trust that so much. And you've got to trust all the versions of yourself that, you know, worked on every single word of that script, like every day of your life for so long. Like, you just have to say, like, that stands up. That stands up. And, you know, at the first time it went out, particularly a lot of the discourse around things like race and cultural appropriation, no one was really talking about that then. Particularly not to the level of, like, confrontational that we were doing in a space like that.
But that's why it's so interesting that you got the reviews that you did, because when I remember watching it, and I remember actually thinking, because I wasn't invited, I got a really dodgy seat. So I had the Arts Council in front of me, and I had a reviewer here, a reviewer there, and a reviewer there. And they happened to be older white people. They just happened to be. And I remember thinking, mainstream press doesn't understand this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved it. I knew how I felt about it, but I really didn't know how the reviews were going to pan out, because they're so often, their kind of lexicon of how they describe, particularly anything that's affiliated with grime, is so often kind of malignant and I think kind of malevolent in a lot of ways. I was really, really surprised. And I think it's so great what you're saying about not doing it for the reviews. And I think a lot of young people put too much pressure on themselves in terms of worrying what the rest of the herd is going to say and think. So I think that's really, really interesting. So that was the first one. And then bringing it back the second time, what did you want to achieve with that, D?
It was much easier the second time for me on stage. It was much more enjoyable. Just because the first time, you know, you got to remember, we took out the longest song in the show got cut in previews.
Yeah.
Like, so much was getting changed. I remember a few days before the show went up, I had 15 minutes to edit one of the songs by half, you know, and then I've got to edit that and then re-memorize that and then relearn the choreography and then it go back up, you know, the stage. And the show itself, so much of it is about pressure being put on me and me reacting to it. And I'm never off stage. I mean, actually, the first time around, I had 2 water breaks where I'd literally walk from one place to another. That was it. In the new version of the show, I'm never off stage. I vomit. That's my break. And I remember in one of the tour venues, I stuck my head out to vomit and realised they didn't have a wall there and I could just see the audience. And I remember I was fixing my hair while I was vomiting, like, oh no, make it look like I'm deliberately fixing my hair. But in terms of what I wanted to achieve, I really felt like the poetics of the script wasn't where my work would usually be. Like, I had such a big team around me of, you know, you had Mikey J and Jammz really helping on the music side of things. You had Aaron and Shanika on the dance side of things. You had Ola and Hamish on the theatrical side of things. And it's like I was the poet, just me. And I really felt like there were things, you know, I'd often get a dramatic thing that I'd have to shift and I wouldn't be happy with the poetics of it. Like, I'd feel like, I remember the whole of Jezebel, that scene, me always just being so annoyed because I just felt like there is no poetics here. It's just rambly. It's repeating itself. There's redundancies all over the place. And it served its job. But I was like, this isn't a poem. Yeah. And that would annoy me. So I spent 2 weeks just on verbs, just underlining all of the verbs and feeling like they went on their own. Because for me, that's the beauty of a poem, is I can read a poem and I'm crying and I don't know what the poem's about yet. And it's because the level of potency in the language is so strong. Like, every word is working on like 8 levels that it makes you feel before it makes you think. And I really wanted there to be that silent journey to know all the verbs in relation to the mum character are doing this. All the imagery in relation to Viper and Debree's relationship are doing that. And for those, and you know, on its most explicit level, you have the Tupperware image, which really comes back explicitly throughout it. And I think people pick up on that. But, you know, and then you have things like most of the poems in it are Shakespearean sonnets now, which for me was like a metaphor in itself, because if you come to Poet in the Corner and you don't know Grime, it is the same as watching Shakespeare. Like, the language and the meter is so impenetrable. You know, and I had, you know, older people from different backgrounds that maybe hadn't grown up with Grime or didn't even really know what it was, saying, you know, for the first 20 minutes, I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea. Like how I might feel in Shakespeare or, you know, Chaucer or whatever. But then if dramatically it's set up right, you know, half an hour in, you don't care. Yeah. And you get it. And I think it, you know, that sort of metaphor in it. So I really wanted to nail that. Me, Jammz, and we brought Kayo Chingonyi in to really work on the poetics of the text. That was really satisfying for me, and I was really happy with that. And I think the book's a much more enjoyable product now as well. We also recorded the album and worked really closely with...
Just because I know that people who haven't been able to see it yet, and hopefully will be able to see it in some life in the future, who haven't been able to experience the energy of the show, where can they access the album? Where is that up? And
Spotify, Apple Music, literally all your regular Tidal, all your regular platforms, you can listen to the album. Yeah, so that's really nice to have those assets out there that people can experience. And also the Real Court put together an educational pack, which actually they've made even more substantial now, so that if people want to study it at, on an academic level, that resource is out now as well.
So, I mean, I want to talk about writing, I want to talk about poetry, I want to talk about music and grime and all of these things. Before we get there and kind of creating our way out of quarantine, before we get there, I think it's important that we talk openly about what cancellation feels like. So to explain that comment, with the outbreak of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and then the government's announcement on March 16th, Hackney Empire, Royal Court, theatres, organisations, production companies across the country were figuring out prior to that what happens next. And we made some decisions that we didn't know how we were gonna, how these decisions were gonna pan out. And actually, fairly early on, there was a decision made to essentially stop the Poet in the Corner tour, and just essentially just stop the tour where it was. And I know that we've had kind of gentle conversations about what a future for that might look like. But at the time, I was heartbroken. I was genuinely heartbroken because of that journey I'd had with it 2 years ago. It would be really valuable, I think, if you'd be happy to share how you felt when that happened. And I'm biased. Listen, I'm biased. But the end was going to be a Hackney Empire. And if you're going to do Poet in the Corner, which was termed as a Grime musical, and I want to know how you feel about that separately, finishes at Hackney Empire, I mean, the shebeens that it would have gone off the charts. I can only imagine. So I don't even know who to start with there, but how did it feel to get cancelled? I'm sorry to do this. Your face has just dropped on me, Perry, but...
I remember being on the phone to Vicky and Lucy, and I think they were quite surprised at my response at the time, I think, which was but, you know, so the last place we went was Birmingham.
Yeah.
And me and Jam stayed together at all of the tour stops. And, you know, so we talk about it every day. And it was, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you remember that period very clearly, which is how quickly things were moving every day. And I have to admit, at the beginning, I didn't take it seriously. You know, we've lived through Ebola and SARS and all other things that have been a potential doomsday story that one day is going to get here, and then it didn't. You know, so you're just thinking, it won't. It's the news, like, it's fine. You know, obviously I washed my hands thoroughly and whatever. But, you know, so it went from just like, I remember when it got mentioned in Belfast, we spoke about it in our tour meeting, and then it was kind of like just a thing on the agenda, move on. You know, and how then slowly, well, I say slowly, rapidly, on the space of days, then you start seeing an immediate impact on audiences. And you start thinking, okay, and I remember there was a day where I thought, if I get it, the show will have to go down.
Yeah.
So it was a really clear moment where I was like, okay, I need to be really, I think it was when I was in Birmingham, I went to the gym. And I remember after I went to the gym thinking, that's a place you could definitely get it. And thinking, okay, how does that mean I need to operate and what have you? But I mean, I remember one day in Birmingham, though our audiences were impacted, walking down Broad Street, and everywhere was packed. There was like so many parties. I went to a party that week, you know, and it wasn't until the weekend after Birmingham, which would have been like the 16th, 17th of March, where my friend, her partner's from Spain, and we were having lots of conversations about Spain. And it was that week where everything changed in Spain, that weekend. Yeah. Italy had gone mad. And there was this direct comparison with Spain. And I think when that happened, also I had, you know, a few of my friends in academia being like really taking things seriously. And, you know, I'm asking the stupid questions of like, well, but, you know, isn't it just the same as the flu? Oh, no, it's not the same as the flu, Deborah. Oh, well, but, you know, isn't it, everything will be fine or whatever? No, Deborah, the NHS will be overburdened, whatever. And then I remember actually in one of the updates, they named the condition my mum has as high risk. So my mum has chronic kidney disease, which is like one of the things that can affect it. So it was just like all these things happening. And I think that weekend where we didn't have any touring to do, it was like a 2-day period. I got very quiet. I got very slow. I got very still. And I think I just silently processed the fact. And actually on Saturday, I think I said to you, Jammz, I think this will be the last time we ever perform this show.
Yeah. I remember that day clearly because it was weird. Even like that day, I just decided on a whim, like, you need to go home now, because I noticed that week, even from Belfast, because in Belfast, you left like a day before me, right, or 2 days before me. And I remember I went to Link Kirabel, and we were in the cab when we went to go, we were going somewhere. He was going to the airport, and he was on the radio, and then the cab driver was talking to us about it, and he's like, surely it's just another flu. And then we got like the last flight on the Sunday night back, and like the day after that, they cancelled all flights on BA from Belfast. So like we just about by the skin of our, like, made it back to even be able to get to Birmingham. And then when we were in Birmingham, I remember things feeling a bit weird because like I went to the Morrisons across the road on like the Wednesday, and then I went there on the Thursday, and I just noticed people were just acting weird in the shopping centre. Like there was whole aisles just clear, empty, and I was like, this isn't normal. Like this is a bit weird. And then, but obviously we were having conversations amongst ourselves in the theatre. And then by the time Saturday came, I was like, do you know what? Like if this lockdown thing is gonna come, because I'd had people phoning me saying, yo, like, why are you still on tour? Like this is going off. And then I thought, you know what? Let me just go home on a Saturday. And it was weird because when I got home on a Saturday, my dad, he wasn't even here. So I was thinking, raw, like, where is he? Like, something happened. I came back, like, his asthma pump was out. So I was thinking, oh, like, I hope he never gone to the hospital. But luckily, he'd just gone on retreat and, like, forgot to tell me in it. So like, there was a whole period for, like, I was sitting there for, like, a day and a bit. And I was like, cool, his phone's off. Like, if he doesn't come back, like, within the next 24 hours, I'm going to have to start phoning hospitals and all of that. And then we got the call, was it on the Monday? Where we had that Skype call. And I was like, okay, it's definitely over, because usually you would be in the building having the meeting, and the fact that we're doing this over Skype says that this is very serious. And then I kind of knew the cancellation was coming anyway. Even like on the Saturday in Birmingham, the numbers weren't what I thought they should have been compared to like all the previous days. And you can kind of tell, like, even in the theatre, people were a bit wary. The mood was tense in the theatre. I feel like you could tell in the audience, everybody was a bit like, am I supposed to be here? Am I not? There was that whole thing.
I think it just also got to a point where you started to feel, because it was so, the thing is that I felt, and why I say I got really quiet over those past 2 days, and I'm trying to be really open about how ignorant I was prior, because I think not enough people are about that. There was definitely a point where I just thought, this is just racism, everyone's getting overly gassed because of China, whatever. I was just like, no, it's not that serious.
I'm with you on that,
I definitely was in that camp. And then it was that weekend where everything shifted really quickly in Italy and Spain, and I started seeing the implications on the healthcare service, and, you know, all those conversations about resuscitation and what was available, and you start realizing what the issues were. That it became very clear over that 72 hours that it would be unethical for us to carry on the tour. And I know Lucy, and I know Vicky, and I know they would feel the same. And if by some magical thing they weren't, I probably would have had to say, I don't think we can. Because to ask people to go into those spaces when I've just been told my mum could die if she got it, feels like, well, no.
I don't want to detract the conversation too much, but it has to be said. And I don't know how many people are saying this publicly, so I will. The government let us down massively. And I'm not talking just about, you know, forget the front line and the absolute catastrophe in the way they're treating key workers. I'm talking about just our little sector in terms of entertainment or leisure, as the government calls it. The fact that they were letting the people who run these theatres make these decisions is crazy. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I should not be in charge. Hackney Empire holds almost 1,500 people. I shouldn't decide whether or not it's safe for 1,500 people to attend my theatre. So put in that, the only reason I say that, I remember, like,
4 days before, they were talking about herd immunity. It was like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous, the level of mixed messages we were getting. And I need to write something about this term, the science.
What does that even mean? Like,
whatever, you know. And I think it very quickly, within a short period, it went from, this is the science, the science, the science, the science, the science, which, you know, I definitely at one point was like, cool, it's the science. And you know, because also what you're doing is you're having to completely reprioritize your entire life. That's the silent, heavy work your body is doing. And over that 72 hours, I went from, this show is the most important thing in my life. In 72 hours, I had to go, it doesn't matter. By the time I had that conversation with Lucy and Vicky on Monday, it didn't matter. Because people can't die as a result of me wanting to do this show. Like, that is the least important thing right now. And that's why I was really calm. But yeah, you're totally right.
I think that week that you described in Birmingham, it will go down in history for all the wrong reasons, because it was the same at Empire, it was the same in Hackney, where there was this weird, like, cloud over everybody, and everybody was starting to come to a far overdue realization that it wasn't just going to be keep calm and carry on, the British, you know, sentiment of just move forward, stiff upper lip kind of thing, and that we were going to have to take real serious steps. So just to go all the way back to the beginning, James, what you said was, you you'd been going for however long, you know, months or years, and then there's this full stop of the cancellation. Again, this is open to both of you, but I'll start with you, Jammz. What does it feel like when suddenly your body and your mind and your emotions suddenly just kind of, did you collapse in on yourself? Did you kind of bounce back? Did you feel revitalized? How did that feel, that moment after?
Oh, do you know what? If I'm honest, I don't even think I fully still like even process how I felt. It was like so many different things. It was like everything happened so quickly. I don't think I had time to think about like, okay, like poet's done, what do I do now? But then it was, what do I do now? Because like my instant thought was like, cool, I don't know how long this is gonna last. Like I'm essentially a freelance creative. What do I do now to like keep earning essentially? Because like the bills ain't gonna stop. Like at the end of the month, everything's still gonna come out of my account. So now I need to think about, cool, that I just need to make whatever I'm doing be able to work from the space that I have, which is home. So I was thinking about like for a week, you know, like how do I do that? And it was like, then I had a week of, cool, I just don't want to think about anything, because it started to get to the point, it was like, I'm getting a message, like somebody's telling me somebody else has passed away, or someone's grandma, or another person's grandparents, and I was going online and I was seeing it more and more, and I was like, this is getting too much, like, come off the socials. Then I really had a moment of like, wow, do you know what, like, it's, maybe frustrating is not the word, but it's very deflating, because Deborah can relate even more so, like, Deborah already said, you spend so much time building up to this big moment, and like we were literally like a week away from doing a lot of the stuff that we planned to do. Like even the stuff that I was talking to you about planning to do at the end of Poet, that was going to be a big moment, not just for Poet, but for our culture as a whole, I believe, like if it had gone down correctly, which it would have. And I was thinking like, you know, when is that going to have when are we going to have the opportunity to do that again? And then the thought hit me, was like, is that even going to matter? Like culture doesn't even really, yes, art matters, but culture is not the most important thing right now. Like Deborah just said, like now it's a case of like life and death. So it's like now having to go through that transition to, cool, I need to do things to survive. That doesn't matter anymore. But then you kind of like feel guilty for thinking about that process that you've just kind of stopped doing. And it's like, you're kind of like fighting with that guilt as well. So I'm at peace with it now, to be fair. Like I'm very happy with what we've achieved so far, you know, like with this play. Like I really feel like one of the most important things that we've done with these plays, that we challenge a lot of like attitudes and stereotypes, and more than, you know, the reviews and stuff. I'm just glad that we had the chance to go into spaces like that and really change people's perception, not just of grime music, but of people that come from where we come from. I feel like we can be so largely misunderstood and disregarded sometimes, and it's like, it's still so relevant now, even with what's going on now, because a lot of the problems that are going on now with coronavirus like boil down to inequality. So it, to me, is still very relevant.
Yeah, completely. I mean, my immediate emotional response was relief, because at that point in time, like what you're talking about, Yamin, and actually the thing that Vicky Featherstone said and Lucy said to us were, we're currently absent of like clear, decisive leadership in this country. That is the problem. We will be that for you. And I needed that. We needed that. So to have someone come in and be so definitive and clear with us, which was what was missing in the world at that point, that was relief. But also at that time, so I was in Nottingham in my old house. My ex is waiting to move back in so that I can move to London. At that point, I was getting messages saying army trucks are moving into London, Deborah.
Yeah.
You know, so I've got to move house. So if what I was really worried was going to happen is that we do the Nottingham run that week, London would get shut down and I'd be trapped there, was actually genuinely what I was worried about. So I was like, them doing that was like, okay, I can just focus on like getting home safely. And also it meant that I could self-isolate for a week before I went home and saw my mum, who was high risk. So it just meant like I could focus on what I needed to focus on at that point in time, which was getting home safely to somewhere that I could isolate for an extended period of time. So that the immediate thing for me was very much like, okay, I'm relieved I can sort out what I need to sort out. And I probably didn't start I probably didn't give myself permission to grieve for like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. Yeah. Like I said, because for ages I thought it was like entirely self-indulgent to do so because there were so many people dying. But then also, like, even within the context of the art industry, I just felt like, well, our show got to so many people, it got reviewed, it got an album made, it got a book made. I just feel like it got, you know, I really felt for those people that were doing press nights to like 20 people or whatever, and then getting shut down. Even having to rehearse whilst all this was going on would have been, you know, that's such an, imagine if you were in tech while all that stuff was happening. I just felt so lucky. So it took a long time for me to be like I said, that 4 hours of crying, to be like, oh, that thing that I've been dreaming about for like the past 5 years, I didn't get to do that. Yeah. And I think particularly when we think about Hackney Empire, which was going to end with, you know, the V&A filming it to go in their archive, you know, Jammz had this really big sort of definitive plan of like getting grime into Hackney Empire in a way that it had never existed before, you know, which he was so supportive of, Yamin. Then we're going to have the biggest 30th birthday party of any human ever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay.
I already bought my outfit. Do you know what I mean?
I wore my outfit at my Zoom party.
Well, I'm glad. And you know, listen, I remember you called me soonish afterwards, and the first thing that you said was that how else can we do this? And I felt very thankful to you for doing that, because and to this day, this is not something I'm willing to give up on, and it's not even my thing. You know, I'm kind of just an external curator, but I absolutely see a future for it. I think exactly what you just said, Dee, and Jazz, what you were saying earlier on, this mashing together of cultures and art forms and people and audiences and communities is just too important. And I really look forward to the day that we're able to do that together in whatever way, shape or form that takes. We've had far too good a time. I know I have to let you guys go because you probably got another LV book to publish or something like that, because you're very important people. But before we go, creatively now, in terms of poetry, in terms of music, be it grime or whatever, you know, musical genre you fall into, how can we create now, talking about what we're talking about? How can we inspire ourselves? How can we push ourselves forward to feel creative, to want to share? Why should we share? What's the point in it all? Like you're saying, you know, the world could end tomorrow. That's how I felt at the beginning. Like, oh shit, this is the apocalypse. What does it matter if I'm running a theatre? Why should we not think like that? Why should we not feel like that? Jammz, I'll start with you.
So why should we not feel that? Say that question again, sorry.
What is the point? What's the point of being creative? What's the point of feeling creative? What's the point of creativity at a time like this? Is it something we should prioritize? And even if we prioritize it and we create it and it's fantastic, is now the time to be sharing that with audiences?
Yeah, do you know what? I've been on the fence about this one, because I've still had stuff that, you know, I've done previously before all of this that was scheduled to come out now, and it's just, sometimes, well, majority of the time, I don't feel right going online to promote things at a time like this when there's so much negativity around. But for me personally, I made the decision to carry on creating because primarily, as an artist and a creative, my primary reason for creating is form of expression. So if I don't create, I can't. That's my way of effectively expressing myself, and that's the only way I'm going to be able to process any of what's going on right now. If I keep creating, if I share it or if I don't. On the subject of sharing, the majority of the stuff I'm doing at the moment, I'm not sharing. But then what I actually realized the other day is, do you know what? Like, yes, sometimes you have to read the room and make a decision as to whether you should share something because, you know, of what's going on outside. But at the same time, you never know how what you do could have a positive effect on somebody else who is at home and isn't able to do anything. So yes, I might post something online that nobody will respond to because of what's going on, but there might be just one person who's at home who's in a bad place, and it might inspire them to be creative and express themselves, you know. And I feel like as an artist, that is probably the best thing that you can do, is to inspire somebody else to kind of allow them to express themselves. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, and Deb, same question to you. What's the importance for you for creativity at a time like this?
I mean, I've had the same conversation with myself. I think particularly, to be brutal, like early on, there were people forwarding me some really hallmark poems that were just like so, I found them quite offensive actually, because they were so one-dimensionally hopeful. And I was so aware of my privilege in the situation, and just feeling like so aware of how many people were dying, how many, even like domestic violence deaths doubling. And, this whole situation is a pervert's dream. Anyone that gets off on violating someone, they can do that much easier now. And I can tell you, as a woman training outside most days, it is crazy.
God, you know what? That hadn't even crossed my mind. It's mind blowing that you've just said that, and it's mind blowing in the sense that I shouldn't be surprised by that, yeah. But because obviously it's not my lived experience, I hadn't even thought about that. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, it's really terrifying. So you think about people being like, oh, it's a poem about how we should, whatever. I'm just feeling like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to write something like that right now.
Yeah.
Just thinking about all the things I didn't want to write, which is like how to paralyze yourself as an artist 101. And then my friend, an actor called Elliot, he started doing an abs workout every day at 10 a.m. for 15 minutes on Insta Live, and I started doing it, and it really helped me. Just like seeing someone I know his brother as well, Conrad Kiro, is a great DJ. Just seeing the same people every day, doing something with them every day, checking in with my body every day, like really changed something for me, and really felt like an anchor, just an anchor every day. I could achieve something every day. And then that caused me to start these. I was like, well, I could do half an hour writing workshops every day. That's super easy for me. I don't have any, for once in my life, I have no work booked in for the next 3 weeks, the next 4 weeks, actually. Let's do it. And then I started just writing every day, like for half an hour every day. And that's when I started tapping into the fact that, okay, this is how I process, just like to what Jammz was saying. Still felt kind of self-indulgent and like maybe a useless use of my time. And then that's when people started messaging me, my dad's in hospital. This is keeping me sane. Like my family at different corners of the world. This is where we meet every day. Me and my partner were about to divorce before this. Now I don't know what to do. And this has really helped me process those feelings. And you start thinking, what defines us as humans, aside from other animals, is art. When you go to a country that has experienced something this monumentally changing, whether it's the Holocaust or whatever, what do they show you? They show you statues, they show you monuments, they show you tapestries, they show you poems. Like that is the reflection of those periods. And that wasn't people getting commissioned to write about it at the time. Very often that was people there being present, trying to work out what was going on.
Yeah.
And, as artists, I wish I could give you the economic solutions to the level of quantitative easing going on. I wish I could solve the problems to the amount of cases of domestic violence. That's not what I got given by whoever made me. Like I write stuff.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, okay, if people are saying that's helping me, providing that space, then let me do that while I have no idea what else to do.
Completely. I think I couldn't agree with you both more. There's two things I just want to talk about really, really quickly. Yeah, one note optimism. I've spoken about it in these discussions before. Is just bullshit. Don't.
I didn't know if we were allowed to swear.
Yeah, but no, well, you're not. But don't feel forced that you have to feel like that. I just think it's so toxic, and just another form of bullying, and particularly on social media. I've spoken about it before. I'm not going to go into it because it's boring enough. And yeah, I think I'm not feeling creative right now, but I'm looking forward to the day, and the day will come when I do feel like that again. And I look forward to creating, hopefully with you both, when that happens. Guys, I feel like we barely touched the surface. It's like the ice, half of it was underwater. Would you sit down for a part 2? I won't be late the next time, I promise. The wrong information, Jay.
Don't lie, Yamin. I'm trying to think.
I will be. But will you be
on time
late again?
It's always worth it, Yamin. But
I love you both and I appreciate you both so much. where can we find you? Debs, where can we find you online?
At Debris Stevenson, just my name, yeah. Everywhere.
Jammz?
At JAMMZ on Twitter, everywhere else, Jammz the Myth.
Yeah, look them both up. They're both incredible artists. They're both doing incredible stuff. You're innovators and entrepreneurs, and I really, really do appreciate you both. I'm going to ask one final question before it's that final thought of the day. And Debs, I'm not even going to ask you this question because it looks like you went on lockdown yesterday, and it's actually making me mad. It's actually
What do
making
you
me
mean?
mad because you look so fresh that I'm actually not going to look at you. But I know that there's a strategic purpose to Jammz's hat right now.
Yo, listen, I'll free out the hair, man. I don't need hair, man.
Let it go. Oh, Lord. See, let it breathe, my brother. Let it breathe.
Yeah.
This is going to be, for all my viewers, this is going to be the last in discussion with hair like this. The clippers are coming out tomorrow and it's gone.
Okay.
And all of this might be gone as well, because who knows what this lineup is gonna shape like. Guys, leave them with a couple of something, anything that you'd like, any kind of tips, hints, anything that you want to leave the audience with just before we say goodbye.
Listen to yourself. That's the last tip. If there's anything that I think can help anyone, listen to yourself and don't listen to the noise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just, breathe. I'd say breathe, keep a journal, and stretch.
Good. That's a good 3 tips. Yes, thank you so much for your time, people. I really, really appreciate it. If you have any questions, if there's any more information that Hackney Empire Creative Futures can give you, please just message us, DM us, send us an email. All information is at hackneyempire.co.uk. We know that a lot of young people are struggling right now. We know that we provide a safe space that isn't available right now. And really, we're just as distraught that we can't provide that space right now, but we want to be here for you. But for us to be able to do that, you need to let us know. We will be as sensitive and as confidential as we possibly can be, but please know that Hackney Empire is still a safe space. It's just not a live, practical space right now. Take care, stay safe, stay inside, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon for another In Conversation with Deb. Jammz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.